In Between. Episode 4. By AMAH'S. She couldn't take it anymore. If nothing is done soonest she will end up as a single parent and God forbids it. She had never fashioned her life as a single mother. She teaches against single parenting for the teenagers. She told them to avoid premarital sex because it does not only has an affect nemesis but one of the major reasons is that they will become a single parent and that is not a good thing. Bringing a child they can't take off and living at the mercy of others is not always enjoyable. Which is why they should strive hard to avoid allowing their emotions to come in the ways of their blessings. God frowns at it and had given a guideline which is the Bible and also position people like she, to speak the truth to their ears and be a good example that they can emulate. Veronica breathed shakily as she thinks back to all the teaching and counseling she carried out for both the teenagers and those who looks up to her. She ended things with her boyfriend because she wanted to live a life that is pleasing unto God. Although the relationship with her ex, Martin was already cold and shaking from both ends and ending it after all was not much of a shock. It was rather expected. She was on track in becoming a lady after God's heart before meeting Pete. It was like a magic with the way they connected. She had mistaken him to be God sent until she discovered that she was pregnant and now she is worse than ever. She can't possibly fold her arm and do nothing while the pregnancy advances. The disappointment and shame will be too heavy to bear. Veronica thought of what to do all through that night and by the following day her mind was made up. She called Jane and when she came over she asked her to call Pete. Maybe if Pete have another close person call and plead on her behalf he may soften up and have a change of heart. Jane called him with her own personal mobile line, put it on speaker just as Veronica asked her to do. She spoke kindly with Pete asking him to reconsider Veronica and not allow anything come between them. At the end Pete assured her that he will think about it. Veronica was at least hopeful but she did not relax. She met her pastor after service one of the Sundays and pleaded with him to call Pete and urge him into doing the right thing. The man of God agreed to do so for her. She gave him his number and perfect time to call and get him. When the pastor later called and spoke with Pete just as Veronica wanted. Pete responded well and also promised to get back to Veronica. Veronica waited for Pete call and finally he called her that night and they spoke. Enough of giving out my number for everyone to call me. Please, don't do that again, Vero. I try to be calm and listen to all the callers but deep down I wanted to end the call right away without second thought. Is a very lame and desperate act. Like forcing me to do your wishes because you're pregnant. But, nevertheless I will come over next week. We will get to talk better. Pete said to her. And he kept to his word this time and came around. Veronica was happy. They got to discuss and just like magic he agreed to walk down the aisle with her for the sake of the baby. Veronica couldn't believe it but Pete actually agreed to marry her within 4 weeks just as she wanted. By next month her pregnancy will start showing and she can't take that chance. And it was as if God decided to answer her prayer by making Pete to suddenly have a change of heart towards everything. The wedding planning was much more in a haste. It was just going to be family and few friends. Nothing serious and no big reception. Pete wanted it that way and she totally agreed to it too. few handful of people to witness the day and wedding is done. The pastor, Jane and few others that heard she was getting married were happy for her and congratulated her. Only Jane knew that she was pregnant and she was the only friend that will stand by her on that big day. Since it was few people that will be attending the wedding, there was no need for big preparation. Her wedding gown was just simple, more like a dinner white gown without veil that hide her stomach properly. Pete only gave her money to go ahead with the preparation. Veronica makes sure she updated him on everything. She informed him on the very day that the church finally agreed on to avoid crowd and Pete was okay with it. Everything seems to be working out for Veronica's good. On the wedding day, Veronica arrived early with the few family and friends that came with her. She waited for Pete's arrival and became very worried when after 30 minutes he haven't showed up. She tried calling but he did not pick up. Her worries increased when it was almost an hour and still no sign of him. The pastor called Pete and his friend picked up and said they were coming. After few minutes later, Pete finally arrived. Pete did not come with any family because his parents were late and his sister lives in another country with her husband. He only came with his close friend. Veronica breathed out in relief. Even if it's just him that came, she was okay with it. Her concern is that the pastor should quickly pronounce them husband and wife so that she can really be at peace with herself and know for fact that she was married. Without wasting time, the little ceremony was done within 2 hours and they were married. The little gathering of people had a good reception while the couples later went home. Veronica isn't sure what comes after now, but her present happiness is that she was married and no longer worried or scared of becoming a mother.